All right, yo. Let me know how the if I'm glitching now. I just restarted the stream. I'm kind of pissed, bro. I can't even lie. I was getting into really good detail, and then you know, live just live just started tweaking out, bro. I don't really know what happened, but it is what it is. While I wait for you guys to get in here, probably just check the amount of viewers through like my phone here. Um, I kind of just gave you guys a little bit of an update. Yeah, I'm like, I just got like a surge of energy right now. I don't know. Like I spent like right now it's like 6 a.m. and I was just like I just pulled like I was like on the night shift. I was at work. I got off at like around almost like 4 a.m. and yeah, I even hit overtime, this week, so which is it's kind of nice. The money's gonna be pretty nice. Not nice on the body, the health. That's why I'm kind of like bloated and whatever. I've been missing the gym a lot. I've been doing gymnastic rings more now, and since it's the holidays, it's like gyms are closed. So I'm kind of forced to. But yeah, I mean, should I go back to where we started off, or should I just go back and re-explain the whole entire thing? I guess since like this is gonna be a new stream, I might as well like just explain everything that I was just talking about again, right? So, I mean, yeah. So let's get back into it, right? I got my points here since I've already recorded, and let me let it focus. Yeah, so you can see them right here. It's a little bit, it's inverted, so. But yeah, I mean, Black African muscle genetics. It's not as simple as you really think it is. So, before the live got, was glitching and whatever. Let me actually make sure it's not doing that right now. Okay. Yeah, no, we're good. So, to get back to the topic, pretty much Black African muscle genetics, to sum it all up. Alright, yeah, I appreciate it, man. So we're all good. To sum it all up, it's everybody's kind of heard this idea that black people in general have good genetics for athleticism being good, and like yeah, athleticism, being able to play well in physical sports. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys, we all know the examples, right? Whether you're talking Ronnie Coleman, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, or like anybody in the NFL. I don't really know the names. I don't know. When I used to play football back as a kid, like Odell Beckham was really a really popular name, right? But pretty much, whenever people are talking about it, especially when it comes to like the muscle building genetic spaces, basically you're able to build muscle, put it on easily, and gain lots of strength, mass, and size. And the thing that is kind of like real about it is that this is based on real genes. It's based on people's real genetics, and there is like a distinctive factor when it comes into all of this. And pretty much that comes down to this thing that we call the fast twitch gene. So, okay, in the other live, I didn't really break down exactly what the fast twitch gene is. So, I might as well do that now. So, let me actually go pull up my notes. Let me see. I had some notes on this before that I made for a video. Now would be the time to show them, if I can find them, obviously. Oh yeah, I think it might be here. So training, gym, health, nutrition, genetics. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So here is exactly where it is. So, I mean, how do I? It's kind of a complex thing, and I want to like, show it because even I don't have it like fully within the grip of my muscle, like my mind memory, whatever, muscle memory. But pretty much okay. Uh, there's this gene called ACTN3, right? It's the fast twitch gene. And basically, what this gene does, it produces this protein called alpha actin, like 3 or something, right? And basically, this helps provide powerful contractions and fast twitch muscle type of fibers responses, right? It basically like encodes your muscles to act a certain type of way through this protein, you know. And I read the study, basically kind of categorized the genes that you, or like the letters that you could have for this gene as I think it was like XX, or like the R allele, right? The R expression. Oh yeah, okay. My bad. Okay, you could either have the X expression or you can have the R expression of this gene. And pretty much how genes work, if you don't know, you basically have certain genes, right, that are obviously, right, and these genes have different names, different functions, they do different things, and based on how these genes are encoded, whether with certain letters, based on these letters, it basically is responsible for how the gene works, right? And so looking at the fast twitch the fast twitch gene ACTN3, which is pretty much the most responsible gene for whenever people are talking about Black African muscle genetics. You can have two expressions. You could have the X expression or the R expression. The X expression pretty much correlates with slow twitch. Some of the correlations are, again, slow twitch and endurance runners, negative correlation with sprinting, less of the ACTN3 protein, reduced hypertrophy response, blah, 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 blah. If you don't know how hypertrophy is, basically how much your muscle grow. R expression, however, what they found in terms of correlation, because that's a lot of what genetic studies really are. It's like looking at certain genes and certain expressions of the genes and finding correlations with like certain things, right? People with the R expression of that gene tend to have like a higher baseline strength. Is overrepresented in sprinting athletes, and these people also have better hypertrophy responses from training, right? So pretty much, what does that mean? It means you're able to get more muscle from training. You understand that? So based on that, right? Based on that, like I said, my editing got bad, bro. We've improved our editing, bro. We've improved it a lot. But anyways, back to the topic, right? Based on like how you based on you get the gene, you can have the AR or the X expression, right? Most Africans have the R expression of the gene, or at least one type of R expression. The study that basically, looked at all of this, found that all Africans, whether you're talking Nigerians, Kenyans, or Ethiopians, had at least one expression, because usually you'll get two, right? That's how like genes work. You'll have like two letters and you'll have two different expressions. Usually they can be the same, they can be different, they can be mismatched, whatever. Most Africans, when they looked at a macro analysis, they took Nigerians, Kenyans, Ethiopians, South Africans, I think even maybe some North Africans, I'm not so sure. But they basically took people from different areas of Africa, right? And they looked and they said, yeah, these people, overall, have the R expression of the gene, at least one of them. A lot of people had two, especially if you go to like regions like Nigeria, right? But most people had at least one R. And this is kind of like interesting, and the reason why is because the whole like sort of like controversy, at least where I kind of decided to like be a little bit, iffy about it, or kind of like, I decided to be a little bit controversial, was that there was this narrative about East Africans being slow twitch. Basically, we're supposed to have the X expression of the gene, versus West Africans being more fast twitch or having the R expression. And this was first like kind of like the narrative when I first started hearing about like African genetics, black muscle building genetics. There was like a concentration on people of West African descent. Basically, people making it very clear that when they were talking about this gene and its benefits to muscle growth, they were talking specifically about West African people and people of West African descent. And basically, the other narrative that kind of got pushed as a consequence of that is that East Africans are slow twitch. And the reason why they said that was because, East Africans kind of tend to dominate running sports, especially if you look at Kenyans and Ethiopians. They basically, people would generally just look at those two ethnic groups and, or, countries, I should say, right? With Kenya, the specific ethnic group being like Kalenjin people, Southern Nilotes. They were like, supposed to be the slow twitch people, right? And I mean, I haven't seen any studies on them specifically. So, I mean, it can be true that they are mostly slow twitch, but essentially, like what I said in the other stream, and I'll say it again. Well, okay, people basically said that they were dominating the the endurance sports because they were slow twitch. But the thing is, it was kind of retarded. And the reason why is because you also had groups of people from other parts of the world who are also slow twitch. So, and that was one thing I kind of noticed with the X expression of the genes. A lot of the correlations weren't necessarily like the strongest. With like the R expression, the correlations were, really there. You could see this particular gene and expression in people who, excelled in certain activities, again, sprinting, hypertrophy response, stronger on average. You could clearly see there was a correlation, but the X expression was a little bit different. The correlations were a little bit weaker, right? So basically, there's like other genes kind of like related. My whole thing, like this last year of like 2025, when I started talking about this, honestly, and I even started talking about this like not even just this year. I made a video on this like 2 years ago. It was that this whole idea that all East Africans are slow twitch is an overgeneralization, because I believe that the majority of us are fast twitch. And when I looked at this study and they did the big comparison, when they did the big comparison, I ended up what I said basically ended up being right. When they compared like all the Africans, the general population, because they did it in a way where there was like the general population. Obviously that sounds controversial, but like who cares, right? Kenya had slightly had like 1% higher people with like the R expression than Nigeria. So that kind of almost destroys, because in even Kenya is like the slow twitch. They're from a specific ethnic group. I'd like to see the genes from the ethnic group, which actually, I actually have something interesting for you guys. I might show you guys later. That kind of just like kind of destroys the narrative. When I looked at like the African populations, the people who had the slow twitch muscle genetics, or the people who had the X like variant, right, were people with more like non-African DNA. That was like the main like distinct, like the more non-African DNA. So the people who had the lowest amount of the R expression, who still majority had R, at least one R expression anyways, but those people who had like the lowest amount out of the Africans were the Ethiopians. And when you're talking about Ethiopians, you usually think of like Habesha, like Semitic speaking people. Those people are like 50 something percent like non-African. Like they are extremely admixed with like Middle Eastern like groups, both ancient and less ancient. Versus when you look at like other Africans, even Kenya, they had more people than Nigeria with like the X expression, but they still had more people with the R expression as well, which was kind of like interesting to see. And obviously, Kenyans have like a little bit of that like North African admixture, obviously, because if you're familiar with like population genetics, so this is me geeking out. Basically, like if you're just someone who's like into like muscle genetics, or like you're a gym bro, I'll make it short. In Kenya, a long time ago, there was like mixed race people who were there, and like other Africans came in and kind of mixed. Because I mean, it does like defeat that whole East versus West African narrative of like these people are like the slow twitch people, these people are like the fast twitch people. Because when you look at it, and I mean, you know what? I'll actually show you like the diagram right now, like the figure. So let me see. Okay, you guys can see my see me flexing my video notes right there. So this is the exact like chart that I'm talking about. I don't know if my, maybe I should make this a lot smaller so I'm not like blocking it. Right? So obviously, okay, you can see it here, right? Ethiopians, the amount of people with RR. So these are the amount of people with RR, the people who are just completely fast twitch, right? And I think on the, in parentheses, there are like percentages. So 44% of them are like literally like fast twitch, right? And that's the general control group. Then you have another 44% of them that are RX. So they have at least one R variant, right? That's like two, that's like already like almost 90% of the population at least has like one type of like fast twitch, type of gene. And then the people with XX, or people with basically who don't have any fast twitch genes at all, that's 12%, right, of the general control populations. When you look at Kenya, 84% of people are completely fast twitch. 15% of people have at least one R gene expression. Only 1% of people are not fast twitch at all. You look at Nigerians, smaller sample size, but 83% of people compared to Kenya's 84. So and that's kind of interesting, right? And then when you look at the and then for Nigeria, then you get 17, right? 17% of people with like at least one R variant, and then 0% of people with like X. So I mean, it's kind of based for Nigeria. South African Bantus, again, you have like a high population, right? Like a high amount of like fast twitch people have like 78%, right? And then people have at least one R expression. 0% of people have just completely slow twitch, right? And then they also compare Japanese as well. So with Japanese, you obviously have some who are RR, right? It's a much lower percentage. Even Spanish. To be fair, with the Spanish and like the Caucasians, Australian Caucasians, they are a little bit higher. Let me see. Yeah, they got 30% of people, which honestly, that's actually more than I thought it would be. I didn't actually pay too much attention to that part of the graph, but I mean, there it is. The Aboriginal Australians too, I mean, they got some pretty high amounts as well. They have 52% of people with the R expression. So, I mean, what you can basically see is that like with black populations, right? In general, you have more people who have at least some type of like R expression, right? With like some exceptions, you know what I mean? But I mean, yeah, that's generally kind of like what you kind of see. And even within the endurance runners for Kenya, by the way, most of them have very few of them actually have the X or a completely slow twitch. So I mean, like that alone, I think that alone is like that's just crazy, Let me see if I can. Average height in Holland. I don't know where Holland. I think I know. I just know it's like. I think it's like in Europe, but I'm not too familiar with that area. I just know like the Netherlands with like the Dutch people are like really tall, and then like me, I'm like a dink. I'm like a South Sudanese, so like I know we're like right behind them, and their average height is only like 6 foot. It's only like 6 foot or like high 5'11". So it's like, I mean, that's something actually kind of off topic, but everybody kind of like talks about like the tallest people in the world, right? Like Dutch people and Dinka. People massively overestimate our heights, bro. Like I hear people say like Dinkas are all like 6'5" or whatever on average. It's all bullshit, bro. It's all bullshit. Like we're pretty tall on average. You're gonna have like a lot of people who are like 6'5". My grandpa on my mom's side apparently was like 7 foot, but you also got some short people. Like my dad, he's like pretty short. He's like 5'7", 5'6", 5'6" probably. So, like definitely like you have like people, who are like on average, like, as a population is pretty high, but like tall, like a tall population is like 5'11". Like 5'11" is like a tall average. You get what I mean? Exactly. Yeah, Europeans are tall compared to the rest of the world. Americans too. Americans too. A lot of people think like I told a friend like earlier, or like a day ago, that because he was asking me about my height, where I was from, whatever, and I was kind of telling him, I was like, yeah, bro, like Americans, the average height is like 5'9". Like that's kind of tall. You know what I mean? I'm 5'11", almost. Like I'm closer to 6 foot, but I had to add that in there. But yeah, I mean that's kind of something with the height genetics. It is something I would want to look into. I do always believe that. I always kind of believed that like heights was like I'm 5'11". I'm like 5'11". I'm like 182, so I'm like 5'11 and like 3/4. But yeah. But yeah, I do feel, I always felt like with dingoes, at least, like a lot of it had to do with like diet, milk drinking and stuff like that. Um, but you like you never really know, right? It's something you have to really like look into, I guess. But yeah, so I mean, that was kind of like, I guess that's why I would explain why African muscle genetics are a lot more like complex than like the general narratives that you see online. And it's not to say that like everybody's wrong or that everybody's trustworthy. Like there's still a lot of good information out there, but um I guess it's another thing when you go and like kind of just like look at everything for yourself. uh Means you have the proportional to add lots of weight and muscle. Yeah, yeah. When I was like younger, I used to know like these really tall kids at like this old neighborhood I used to live in. They were both like seven. They were like seven. They were like tall, and they were twins too. But they were kind of like that archetype of like tall, kind of goofy looking, a little bit like floppy. Like they weren't like tall chads. Maybe they are today. I don't know. But they were like, just kind of like tall kids, a little bit awkward, a little bit antisocial. It is what it is. I was kind of like that when I was like younger. I was never like super tall, obviously, but like, I was kind of like tall, awkward. But yeah, I mean, I guess like something else I could show you guys too, right? Given that we're on the topic of African muscle genetics, there's a muscle genetics report that I did for a friend. It's like I did it like earlier this year. Earlier this year, I was like really grinding, bro. You know what? I'll probably show it to you guys now. I think this is his report, so let me see. No, I live in Arizona. Yeah, I live in Arizona. So this is like a muscle genetics report that I made for my friend, pretty much. And I did this with the help of AI, obviously, because I didn't really know how to code. And a lot of like the way that I learned about these genes was through like AI. Like I asked it like, what type of genes would be beneficial to kind of look at. And at first I was trying to create something just in general for like African genetics, so you can learn about your ancestry. I slowly changed it like by the time it was like spring, I had made, actually no, not even by spring I had like the whole system coded. But by, I think it was like by like this summer, I decided to make it like full, like just about health, which was kind of cool. But there was like a few like especially kind of like these ones kind of like related to health. So if you're wondering about the ethnicity of this friend, I probably won't say his name. I did ask him like about like a month or two ago whether I could ever use his like report, and some other friends too. So if anything, I don't know if I'll do it today, but I'll show like these reports that I made for my friends. Um like on like different lives. But pretty much, what do you call it? These are like, like their muscle genetics reports. So pretty much like what I did was, they took like a DNA test from something like 23andMe and whatever. They give this thing called like a raw data file, and I take this raw data file and then I just run it through like a program that I have, and then it will like generate me this report, and it will just tell them about like their muscle related genes. Yeah, if you're interested in that, first thing in the description, bro. Shameless plug. But anyways, we'll kind of just look at the like this diagram. There's like a bunch of other stuff in here. So like here, there's like, this is like all the genes kind of like smashed together in one. Then here's like a diagram that kind of shows, like a muscle potential score, fitness genetics, general fitness genetics. I actually have a video I made. I don't know if we'll release it, but I have a video made like where I kind of talks about this, all these genes, what they kind of mean, and then here's some like advice about, tailored to him based on his genes and whatever, stuff about diet, hormones, etc. Just kind of, it's kind of, stuff, all of this stuff. Like if you're talking about like getting in good shape, it's beneficial. It's not super essential. Like you're not gonna, you can definitely do without having this, but it is kind of useful information to have. But taking it back to this guy, his ethnic background is Tutsi. And the reason why I say that is because, I mean, if you don't, if you're not familiar with Tutsi people, it is very controversial whenever you talk about them and like the African space. Like I think even in like their country, Rwanda, you're not even allowed to like identify or talk about the tribal history just because, the whole genocide that happened. But I make a point out of this for like very, interesting, specific reasons. This guy, he's like, his ethnic group is very closely related to the ethnic group of Kenya's endurance runners, which people say are slow twitch, which is very, interesting, right? These people kind of live the same lifestyles. They have the same type of ancestry. They're very closely related, have the same like DNA basically. And including like a big DNA component that's related to like the Horn. So like people like Ethiopians, Somalis, etc. Both of these ethnic groups have. And the thing that made his DNA special was that he actually had, like, when I made this, I was looking at this specific graph. So we were looking at these like 4 specific genes, which are basically the ACTN3 gene, this right here that you see on the left. Is what I basically just explained to you. ACE, which is pretty much kind of like a strength gene. If you're wondering, basically, you have a strength advantage. MSTN, which is myostatin, basically it's responsible for this like chemical or whatever that regulates muscle growth. And PPARA, which kind of determines how you fuel your body, and that kind of determines whether you're more of like a fast or slow twitch type of person that you do. And this guy had like the perfect gene. That's why it says 100%. This guy had like the perfect genetics for like complete fast twitch, what you would expect someone to say about like a Nigerian's genetics. This guy's fast twitch. He has he doesn't have he has like less he has myostatin deficiency. That's basically what this gene says. So if you look here, let me find where it says myostatin, right? Myostatin deficiency, so significant muscle growth advantage. Basically myostatin regulates your muscle growth. This guy has myostatin deficiency, so he has less regulation on his muscle growth, right? So not only does this guy have like a better hypertrophy response, but his muscle growth, his gains that he gains aren't going to be as like regulated versus somebody who does have it like regulated. Like that's like a killer combination. Then he has the PPRA gene, like the part that kind of is more responsible for basically strength and speed. What's it called? Pretty much like the variance of it, what makes it more like better for like fast twitch sports. And then ACE, which pretty much I think it has more to do with like your like health, high enzyme activity linked to superior strength and power. Like he has the variance of it, or he has like the expression of the gene that gives him that strength advantage. And that's why it says 100% here. You get a 25 for each, like 100%. I only get like 87. Took ancestry, and it gave me 100 as well, but I'm not sure how accurate that is. This guy got me. I get 87 when I take my 23andMe file. And bro, like this is like that was like really interesting to think about, bro, because technically, and the thing about him too was that he was like a skinny guy. Like we were like the same height, but he was like I'm pretty light. I weigh like between usually like you know like 160, between 160 170. This guy, he weighed like 130 at like my height, which is like 5'11". He was skinny, and like he was like sleep, like he was sleeping on like killer muscle genetics. Most people walking down the street and he told you his ethnic group, and you were kind of, you know, African muscle genetics myth, you would tell him that he's slow twitch. You would tell him, yeah, you know, it makes sense. You're not Nigerian. You're not West African. You don't have, you know, fast twitch muscles. That's the reason why. I'm pretty sure that's what he believed as well. And you know, the funny thing is, when I actually when I showed him this, and he actually started taking the gym seriously, and he got like really consistent in it. I don't know too much about his progress now, but the last time I talked to him about it, he was saying, yeah, like he's been gaining weight. He's been hitting the gym because he realized, like, bro, he has good genetics all this time. I was like, bro, yeah, you athletic builds, you know, like our like ethnic groups, our ancestors were like, you know, just like active all day doing stuff. You know, that's like, should I show you this video? Like, I wanted to like react to this. Is it? I don't know if I'll be able to do it now. This is like, I don't know. Yeah, I'll probably. You know what? I'm gonna take a risk. I'm gonna open up my YouTube, whatever. Let me see. Kasana Samburu. Let me see. This guy. Yeah, okay. I wanted to react to this video. I don't know if you all. But, you know, I mean, we'll kind of wait for that to play. As you guys know from the previous stream, my Wi-Fi isn't the greatest. But what's going on?
Honed over centuries.
All right, done.
Before I take on the ultimate challenge.
Absolutely amazing.
I'm gonna try to see if I can find like a clip in here. I don't know. I don't want to bore you guys, but you know, like
Herding tribe whose lives traditionally depend on cattle.
Man, sucks when you got desert. My friends in Discord always roast me for this. Now it's like on stream. Now it's gonna be like a meme. It is what it is. But anyways, like you're gonna get what I mean. You know, you guys seen. I'm pretty sure you guys seen like all the videos. This guy right here, like he's doing this. Holy crap! Is my Wi-Fi really that bad?
Yesterday, I thought it was okay to react to the bee stings.
Right.
But Kasana is
I want to see that
concerned
clip.
because Samburu warriors do
Oh
no pain.
Yeah, like that. You see, like this right here, like this mode. Let me try. Could I refresh? That's just crazy, you know. He's doing this.
Yesterday, I thought it was okay to react to the bee stings. But Kasana is
All right, yeah. I think I'm just gonna keep it happening. But pretty much, I mean, let me put my music back on. But yeah, I mean, I guess like the overall thing is about it is like, yeah, we, you know, don't sleep on your genetics, don't sleep on like, you know, whatever, right? And I mean, this also shows, like, I guess, you know, the exact title of the video, the complexity of African genetics. Not really complex. I'm basically saying we have good genes. You know, we have good genes. Like on average, you have more people who are like fast twitch. You have certain individuals like my friend and myself who have good genes related to other things in muscle genetics. All pretty like interesting things. Yeah, yeah. It says right there, humans have the highest endurance of any mammal on Earth. That's another thing too about like fast twitch versus slow twitch that my friend told me about when I was like first looking into this, and is that we usually think of fast twitch versus slow twitch as like if someone's fast twitch, they are like 80% like completely just fast twitch. But the actual difference, even between someone who has like the like when I talked about the R expression and the X expression, the difference between the person who has the RR expression versus the XX, like someone who's completely like not completely, but has both of the gene expressions for fast twitch versus someone who has both the gene expressions for slow twitch, it's not actually that different. In humans, the difference is a lot more 50-50. But if you take something like a tiger, for example, a tiger is going to have way more fast twitch, like muscle fibers and whatever, than like, your human, which is actually, you know, what's it called? Yeah, what, I got kind of lost. I'm looking at the comments. Yeah, how old are me and my friend? Don't want to say his age completely because, like, for his own, like, out of respect for him. But he is in his 20s and I'm in my 20s. He's in like his close to mid. I'm like in my early. So so yeah, man. That's pretty much I guess all I really had to show for this live. I kind of want to stay on here and talk a little bit more about stuff, but my Wi-Fi is kind of bad. I might start introducing like reaction content. I had a friend in my Discord server just like a few minutes ago recommend me doing it, and honestly, I'm down for it. Someone who I really like watching a lot is Myron Gaines. He's a bit of a controversial guy, but I agree with a lot of his takes, especially like on the red pill stuff. And I like the way that he does his streams and the way that he like pushes out his content. Like he'll do a stream, he'll cover multiple different topics. So maybe like, so if I was to like copy him, he'd do a stream like this, or it's like his main thing. His main thing is almost like red pill or whatever, right? But he's into politics. So I'll do my thing. Okay, I'm talking about muscle genetics, and then maybe there's like some type of drama going on in the fitness community, or like the history community that I'm the geek whatever, right? And then I'd like react to it, the latest video, and Metatron dropped another video, whatever, something like that, and I'd react to it, give my commentary, do like a really long stream, and then get a bunch of clips from that. Honestly, I am gonna do that thing with the streaming and clipping, but that's pretty much insightful, pretty bold. I don't know if you're talking about Myron. Yeah, he's a pretty controversial guy, bro. So like, I'm gonna try to stay too. I don't know. I don't want to like ruin my channel, over like some politics. You know what I mean? Because I know the stuff that he talks about is like pretty. It's pretty controversial, and it's like, I mean, he even says it too, like if you're gonna talk about this, make sure you got yourself set up. I'm not as well established, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to build like a business off of like the internet, so it's like I'm not at that stage, but I can comment, give my opinions on some things. Olympic lifting is the hardest of all. It's just impossible if you don't have very good training. But you will become insanely strong. Yeah, I've never really actually looked into Olympic lifting, to be honest. I do know, like, yeah, those guys are like pretty. Those guys are like pretty strong. You know what I mean? But I mean, who doesn't know that, right? But I've never actually looked into it myself to like, as like the sport, But yeah, I mean, I guess I want to talk about that thing too. I mean, yeah, that calisthenics, bro, being like the best thing. I don't know. I kind of like, I respect calisthenics to a certain degree, but honestly, I think if you really want to like gain muscle, you got to start lifting weights. You really got to start lifting weights. I think that's like the best. If you want to gain like size or whatever, I mean, it's one thing if you want to be able to like control your body weight. You want to be more functional, then maybe calisthenics would be like a wiser option. I tend to do kind of both. Like I do like my regular, push pull leg split. I do my regular push pull leg split with my with in the gym weightlifting. But then I'll do like gymnastic rings, like on the side is kind of like my calisthenics thing. So I mean, yeah, the main thing about calisthenics for me is I think some of the stuff, like the tricks and stuff that they can do, look cool. But if I'm trying to like get like like my whole goal, like especially like even my program, right, ascendancy, I want to get people to be like aesthetic. I want people to have like good physiques. And I'm not saying you can't do that with calisthenics. You definitely can, but I think lifting weights, going to the gym, it's a much more effective way of doing that than calisthenics. You can do calisthenics on the side. You can you can't you don't have to yeah, cardio as well, yeah. You don't have to like restrict your one to the other. If you want to do both, obviously they're gonna have to focus on one more than the other, but you can do both. And I think progressive overload with calisthenics is pretty like weird too. I think the easiest way really is like, I mean, obviously you can add weights, whatever, but also like trying to learn certain moves, I think is like a good way of like progressive overload. But anyways, with that being said, guys, I'm about to go. It's like 7 a.m. I gotta be up, in like what, like 5 hours to go and do a workout. Training at this like a gym that one of the personal trainers or one of the trainers at my gym kind of opened up to me, or like let me come to. I really appreciate him. I would, should I don't know if I should. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it later. I'll promote my stuff now. But yeah, I mean, if you're interested in like getting your advice from me, what I do, stuff like that, I'll do a quick shameless plug. I didn't get to do it last stream. Basically my ascendancy school. And let me actually find it now. So yeah, pretty much right here, fitness community, school community. Basically, I help you build a aesthetic physique, help you plan out meals, workouts, phenotype predictors, so that report I just showed you, and community as well, things like that, things of that nature, weekly calls. If you're interested, first thing in the description is pretty much where I put everything. I don't have every single course here like built out, but I do have like my training routines posted, right? I do have some videos that kind of cover like some basics. I am still in the phase of building this out, including here like this modeling and looks maxing course. So, or course videos, but pretty much, yeah. And then I have stuff about nutrition where I talk about like the perfect diet, lactose tolerance. I have like a small little PDF where I kind of show everything when it comes to just like the diet that kind of gets you like lean, and whatever foods that, and what type of vitamins you get for them, what you should be eating when, blah 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 blah. Basically, stuff that would kind of like help you out with like dieting, training, whatever. And I guess like the main goal is really it's like ascendancy, right? I didn't know that ascend was like a looks maxing term, honestly, until like after I already made the name, whatever. So I mean, if you if you find it cringe or whatever, like it is what it is. But hey, it's pretty much to get you the best shape that you can get in, looking your best or whatever. I'm trying to do all myself, but it's hard not getting enough sleep, working these late night shifts. But yeah, I think truly this is probably one of my ways it can help. If it is a little bit it's $50 a month, so it is a bit of an investment. If you don't, if you can't afford it, if you think you're gonna struggle, there's no pressure. All right, bros. My computer just died. If you're wondering what happened, so I'll end the stream. But yeah, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys watching. I'll be here. I'm not sure. I might make these things like a weekly thing. Um, I've been really consistent recently, so I think that's good. But yeah, I mean, that being said, any extra comments, just leave them in the video. And yeah, with that being said,